It's the annual conference. It's exciting stuff. It's in its nascent planning stage, and we've got big shoes to fill by comparison to last year. But as we know with the SCL conference, each year gets better and better and more exciting.
Yeah, and
so,
frankly, what a year, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Where do we start?
I don't know. I mean, we talk every year, don't we, about how technology is becoming more and more pervasive, and there's so many more issues coming out of it. I mean, talk about acceleration. Is it not fair, really, to say that every facet of our lives is now drenched in technology in the way that it really wasn't a year ago?
And that's the thing, isn't it? If our lives are drenched in tech, then we and our members and our colleagues who come to the annual conference, how best to serve them, right? How best to serve those members such that they remain on the forefront, right on the front foot as regards the most relevant developments, the issues coming down the track, some of the tech obviously as well, such that they can come to a conference and take away from it a real sort of almost like an all-you-can-eat buffet. That sense of having upskilled on an accelerated basis over the course of a couple of days, and go back to the day job, wherever it may be, with an even better appreciation for all things tech and law and how they affect us.
Exactly, it's the practical, but also actually it's the wider sort of appreciation of policy, and just an opportunity to think about where we are now, where the law's going, and what we need to understand as tech lawyers, given the last year, given everything that's happening.
And that's our task. You and I, as trustees, we've taken on the mantle of pushing forward the blueprints for this year's annual conference. And the task is an interesting one, given everything you've just said about the context there. How do we make it the most relevant in these times, both in terms of how people are interacting through Zoom and Teams and so forth, but also the issues people are really facing? And you and I have been batting back and forth a central theme for the conference, haven't we? Technology, as you said, technology at the heart of all things, touching all things, the acceleration effect, technology in civil society more generally. That you came up with that, Matthew. What was it about that as a theme that drew your attention?
Yeah, I mean, lots of tech law in the civil society. I just come back to what I said at the beginning. This comes at a time when individuals, governments, corporations, and we're all becoming more and more alive to the implications, aren't we, of the generation and processing of vast quantities of data, the good side of that and the bad side of that.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's fair to say there's increasing unease at the effect of social media, the effect of AI decision-making on individuals, on societies, frankly, on democracy. And more generally, there's much more discourse than there was even a year ago about what society's relationship with technology. It's under scrutiny. And that's got profound effects, it seems to me, for us as tech lawyers. And there are practical implications. How do we work? How do we advise our clients?
Yes.
But there are also kind of policy implications. What's the shape of regulation to come? And that's why I thought this is an opportune time to actually look at the state of tech, look at our relationship as a society with tech, but from the perspective of tech law and tech lawyers. And that's why, I mean, civil society, it's a weird phrase in a way. It's got no precise definition. It's often used, as you know, Mark, to refer to the third sector, NGOs, organizations, charities, and the like. But actually, for me, it captures something broader than that. It's the concept of shared interests and values, of collective action. It's, if you like, the public square. And that, to me, is the real underlying theme of this conference. It's tech law in the public square, almost. It's how we interact with that public square.
And if we get right, I like that. And if we can do that well over the course of 2 days, the annual conference, then those delivering advice using technology, but also advising their organizations in-house, advising their clients from the private sector, however we may be involved in this, will do so in a way that is that much more informed. I think a part of our role, don't you agree, is to see if we can highlight some of the things coming down the track.
Very much so.
Also, there's often with the annual conference, I think it's an opportunity to hear from leaders in their field. It's an opportunity to hear some of the more left field, challenging views, because that's good, because otherwise we risk an echo chamber if we just hear the same views. So we need things that challenge us and that make us look at things in different ways. And I think there is also a little bit of a role in any annual conference to look at our membership, look at the broad spread from the young to the old and so forth, so that we make sure we cover all bases, and all our members come away thinking, wow, today I have 10 new things I knew that I didn't yesterday. I have a checklist for the next meeting I'm going to have with my client. I've got a note to self to look at this change in policy or regulation coming down the track in the next 9 months and so forth. And essentially to equip. That's the point, isn't it? To equip our members
exactly right.
for the next year. Exactly
right. So they're informed. They can have discussions. I mean, after all, if you're dealing with tech clients, they're all over this stuff.
Yeah.
Just even setting aside the particular piece of advice you may be giving, you want to be able to speak the language. You want to know what the concerns are. I mean, that's what this is all about. But also, the one thing you haven't mentioned, of course, Margaret, is the community. I mean, this has been a year where everything's on Zoom or whatever platform you like. But what we want to do with our conference is actually get people coming together. Now, probably not physically, we'll have to see about that. But there are opportunities, aren't there, as well as downsides with the lack of the ability to gather. And that's that we can use technology to actually expand our community to overseas. And I don't think we've talked about timing yet, have we?
No, we haven't. I think you're right. I think there's actually, rather than it being a limiting factor, I mean, certainly for those who can, I'm sure I hope there will, by the time the annual conference, be ways in which we can physically come together. That is part of the community. But actually, in recognizing that we can't for everybody, we can flip that and make that a good thing. As you say, so we can actually open up to overseas to those who wouldn't necessarily travel anyway. And as you say, in terms of timing, our thoughts are nascent, but we're hatching a plan, aren't we? That the conference runs across 2 days, and we need to work around time differences, whether that be in the US or across Eastern Europe and the Far East, and also people's working days. So the idea being broadly that we kick off on the afternoon of the first day with some sessions, and perhaps at the end of that, for those who have got a long day but could, around childcare, around working from home, around client demands, could join a keynote in the evening, even followed by a virtual and/or hybrid social, if we can figure that out as well. But then we restart the following day early. For those who are early birds, but also those who are already up across Eastern Europe and the Far East. And so we can appeal to a much broader spectrum and hear from folk, whether they are in Hong Kong or New York, who can give us additional perspectives for our members who are broadly or predominantly in the UK.
Exactly right. And it's partly the geography, isn't it? But also the point you touched on before. I mean, there is an inclusory angle to this. You might well be in the UK, but at the moment, particularly, you have childcare difficulties. You don't have the normal working day. And this way, hopefully everyone can be involved to an extent. And by the way, I hope we can do some time shifting as well. So people can, although not so interactive, people can pick up on sessions after the event and network after the event.
That worked quite well last time, didn't it? Some of the whether it's a flash talk or a panel session, some can be live, some can be filmed, some can be in advance, can't they? Everything can of course be filmed and then re-syndicated later for those who can't watch them live. So I think that there are some positives from the technology and the limitations of social interaction that we can actually turn to our advantage. And we are the Society for Computers and Law, so we ought to be using that technology to make it as useful as possible for as wide an audience as possible.
You think so? Sort of civil society in microcosm. There you go.
This is it. Yeah. Acting and doing what we preach, as it were.
Yeah.
So, what do you think in terms of how our membership can get involved? I mean, there's clearly some save the dates that we need to send out so that people know this is coming, and we will, from bit by bit, reveal our speakers and so forth, and flesh out civil society and tech law in such the way that it covers those things that people would expect to be covered, be that the bleeding edge on culpability for the platforms for hate speech or whatever it may be it debating around the ethics of artificial intelligence and decision making, be that in financial services or recent reports in munitions and warfare, anything like that. But also the day job continues. Yes. The advising on post Schrems 2, what actually do we do with data? How does an IT outsource work when the provider is in India or the US or wherever it may be, and the day-to-day of a technology dispute and so forth. So there's a full range of the sparklingly leading edge, bleeding edge, and the absolute normality of day-to-day that we want everyone to take away with that uplift in awareness through the course of the 2 days.
Absolutely, and also, of course, the tech itself. I think we're quite keen to continue the theme of educating the lawyers about the tech, which we've been doing through a number of different sort of forums actually over the last few years. But the idea is, if we're dealing with some cutting edge tech in a panel session, let's have someone explaining how it works first. And not people like you and I, the lawyers, having a go at doing it. Well, let's get some tech people in to tell us how it works. And so you'll get that as well. I mean, when you want to talk about with your clients about machine learning, for example, and the implications for governance of your machine learning models, well, how about making sure you've got a grasp of machine learning by hearing 5 minutes from a true expert? We'll do that as well at the conference.
We'll make sure that happens, won't we?
Yeah.
And colleagues that want to get involved, this isn't just the domain of the grey-haired, he says, with grey hair, gnarly old lawyer who has been doing it for years, who's going to stand up and pontificate. Actually, as we've seen over the last few years, we've made this increasingly inclusive. We've had magic, we've had verse, we've had poetry on cloud, we've had all sorts of things come in. And I think the flash talk idea, short, sharp, a new aspect or key takeaways on an issue that can upskill or just update our colleagues across the community is something that anyone at any stage of their career can do. Students, newly qualified, in-house, in private practice, really doesn't matter. So I don't know what you think, Matthew, but my exhortation essentially to the membership is, if you've got a story, if you've got a perspective, if you fancy a platform, and if you don't want to do it live, we can video it, but get involved. We are open.
You're absolutely right. We definitely want fresh perspectives, both from our younger members, also, and we'll be dealing with this, but bringing people in from outside, because we don't want to be a sort of a sort of social media style talking to the echo chamber. But yeah, a really important point you make about pre-recording. If you feel you've got something to offer with a flash talk, but you're a bit nervous about speaking live, no problem. We can pre-record and do it 20 times if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff.